G'day everyone, this is Yisrael Siegel. This is next entry into Founder Stories. Again, this is just kind of me going through my journey building stuff. I hope some of this stuff resonates with you guys. I'm not even I'm not like a Fortune 500 founder, still struggling my way to making companies successful and things like that at this time. But I thought I would document sort of a little bit my journey, and as I mentioned in the first episode, hopefully some things resonate, hopefully some of this helps, but kind of starting from the beginning of that I think helps to see the journey ahead and the things that I went through and things that I tried, and maybe come up with ideas along the way of things that I should try, and see other people's stories and see how it works with other people's stories. And so in the last time I ended off, so I spoke a bit about who I am, which has really impacted the way that I build. But the main point from the last entry was that I found Google Tag Manager server side. Now, if I trace back my entire journey about building anything, there were two moments in time that really changed everything. Right? And I'll get it. The first one is Google Tag Manager server side. And the second one, I'll get into another time. It will be another entry. The first one was Google Tag Manager server side. Why Google Tag Manager server side? It seems like such a small thing. As I mentioned, I think second entry, I'd always been haunted, and we're talking about 2 years now. This is not so long after that episode. 2 years before this, I had not been able to build something I wanted to build because I lacked the technical abilities to do so, and I couldn't find somebody to help me build it. And I'd always haunted by the fact that any idea that I had would always be waylaid by the inability to find help building the technical side of it. So that I always had this obstacle. And that was a problem because I really wanted to build something, and I had a lot of ideas, and I had a plan of how to do that, but I could never find that. I would either have to self-finance, which I couldn't do, the actual building of these things, or I'd have to find somebody willing to take it on equity, which was also very difficult to do. And I didn't want to take anybody on Y Combinator because I didn't know anybody. I didn't want to do any of that, and I heard some stories about that, and so I didn't want to find anybody that I didn't know to commit to it. And then I didn't really want to take somebody that I knew either because, what happens if it failed? But I did need somebody, so I tried to go for the people that I knew or the people that they knew. But again, I was always, even if I got market validation or if I got idea validation, it wouldn't really make a difference because, as I've learned acutely over the years, having idea validation and then being able to tell something, they're worlds apart. It may help, may not. You shouldn't invest in something before you have some sort of validation. It doesn't mean you can actually sell the thing. And so learning Google Tag Manager server side was the first time I went into like microcode, like a small basic primitive code. And it was that moment of doing that kind of changed things. I mean, even SQL, I already had some technical ability, and I already knew like HTML, CSS, stuff like that. But being able to actually build something, the function, or see something, the logic, to see the sort of like this world that was foreign, I'd never thought it possible. And the issue that I was in was actually quite simple. So Google Analytics always has the advantage, of you can see not just what's happening on your site and things like that, and HubSpot does a very bad way of kind of doing this. It's not really intuitive to understand the journeys that are going on. Google Analytics, especially old Google Analytics, was very great in understanding path analysis, which was made very, very great. Nowadays, with the Universal, with GA4, it's not as great, but it still does a decent enough job. But it got data from people that weren't in your CRM. And that's what and you see, HubSpot only gives you the data once they convert, and you get maybe 7 days before that if you're lucky. But you don't really get 30 days beforehand. But Google Analytics does. It'll give you 12 months worth of data. You can tie it in saying based on the different multi-channel reports, attribution reports that it had, you can look back quite a significant window. And I wanted to use that one, but I also wanted to see, okay, well, if I had that ability, is there a way that I can kind of merge both the CRM and Google Analytics together? So I started thinking about, okay, well, what happens how can I get the Google Analytics ID into HubSpot, and how can I get the HubSpot ID into Google Analytics, because then I can break it down. So that's where Google Tag Manager server-side came in, because what I would do is that every time I would send like something into Google Analytics, and I've said Google Analytics way too many times here, what I would do is that it was sent through server-side. I would get every time you have a HubSpot, you have something called the user token. And what I would do is that I would first make an API call into HubSpot to see if I could get the contact ID. And if I could get the contact ID, then I would go in and see if I could get the company name by the association. And if I could do that, then I would send both into Google Analytics. Otherwise, I would just send the HubSpot user token. And what this gave me is the ability to kind of see, the different, like, let's say, user tokens, like, broken up, but also by contact IDs to see if I could group things by individual contacts and to see things beforehand, and then also to break things up by company name as well, if I wanted to see things that are around on the company level, to see the different paths that different companies take on the website, which you can't do inside of HubSpot itself. So even without really being able to see a whole lot of data beforehand, I can actually see the path that different companies took on the website, where in a much better way, to see what obstacles there are, where they usually bounced and things like that, and then I could analyze it based on, okay, these types of companies usually look at this, and these types of companies usually look at that, and this is where I find these are the greatest obstacles for these types of companies, and things like that. And obviously having the contact ID from HubSpot, I can do the same thing on a title level. I can say, never end up putting title into it, probably I should have, but I would end up being able to say, okay, these contacts, I could look at the contact IDs, this is the title of the contact ID, this is where they usually get stuck, and I can sort of see an aggregate. And in HubSpot, you can't really see it, because you can either see a summary, or you can see like page by page, or you can see in a property the last time, but you can never really see, all the, like, this is the entire path they took, this is where they broke off, this is why, you can't see any of that. So that's why I really liked putting it into Google Analytics. And that's what Google Tag Manager server-side gave me the ability to make an API call. So in this one thing, I had to learn this really, 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 really strange version of JavaScript. I also had to learn HubSpot's APIs. And it took me a long time. I think it took me, and we're talking about pre-AI days, we're talking about AI is only like 3 years old, or 4 years old, I don't know. But this was way over, this is 8 years ago. And so it was a lot of reading, a lot of very technical documentation, trialing and error. There wasn't so many people I could talk to about this. And it was a breakthrough, because it was the first time it did two things. It allowed me to extend the ability of something beyond what it is. Essentially I saw this as me being free from the limitations of the software around me. Instead of seeing, okay, I'm bound by the limitations of any software that I have, it's more about, I have these tools, what do I need them to do for me? And if something is native, can I do and if something is not native, can I make it do the things? And I think, and it was the first time that I was able to actually, build something, even if it was so small. I took an idea that I had, and I wasn't dependent upon somebody else. And that snowballed into so many things that came later. And so this was the moment for me where I went from, I have an idea, to, I can actually build it. I went from, I had an idea, to, I can actually build something or test it out. Now, obviously I couldn't build a lot of big things, but it was still there's a potential to build something. I'm curious, anybody that's listening to this, I'd be happy to hear, what was your moment? But this was it for me. Cheers.